Well, good evening. Because I like living on the edge, I thought today I'd have a go at this NordMende German radio. I picked this up in Melbourne at Christmas time, one of the 5 or 6 radios I bought down there. I got it off a gentleman through Marketplace. He told me that it was his grandfather's, and I'm not sure if he bought it out from Europe with him or not, but it was his grandfather's. He said it was working. It stopped working at some point. His grandfather fixed it, and it was working, and then it's been put away. So he said it's been sitting in the cupboard for years. So lucky for me, I managed to pick it up before it went into the bin, which would have been its next trip if nobody had bought it, I'd guess. Pretty typical layout for a European radio with the names of the towns and cities. Now the buttons are in German, but the UKW is FM, I think. Medium wave, long wave, TA will be phono input, I would think, and OS is off. So I think I worked that out. It's also got bass and treble controls and an early version of a graphic equalizer. It's got Magic Eye, of course, which let's hope that works. They're hard to get. Alright, I popped the back off. These German radios usually have a panel on the bottom so you can see underneath. There's only one screw in there, that's a bit of a worry. Well, I can see for a start it's got 2 valves missing, so much for being put in a cupboard, I would say. It's got no speaker in it. Well, the gentleman that sold it to me obviously didn't know much about what it was all about. Okay. Oh, okay. Nice. There's a nice tape repair on the power. Actually, the fact that the wire was inside the case might have been a clue that there was something going on. There's a couple of wires here. I don't know what they're from. What the? What? That's the capacitor. The power. That's the big Electra. It's just wobbling around. Alright, before I do anything, I'm going to pull this all the way out and see exactly what is going on. Alright, just give me a second, I'll get these knobs out of here. I'll take the screws out to see one's different to the other. This has had a lot of work done to it over the years, I would think. These are just wood screws. Is that right? No, it does come out. Hang on. There we go. I've worked out what the 2 grey wires were coming out of the back of the set. This is the output transformer, and there's just jump it off there and taking them out to an external speaker. There's a little push buttons for the, I'll call it a graphic equalizer. They're working alright. I don't know whether they work or not, but they click alright. These are the 2IF transformers, and they've got little adjusting screws. So you're probably at home saying, oh, that's pretty normal for German radios, but as I said, I don't have any experience really on German radios. There's the FM section there. Alright, let's have a look underneath. There's the transformer. There's something here. I have no idea what that is. Can't see that. There's the... So there's the tuner. This radio, like most German radios, has got an FM dial or scale and a medium wave scale. So this is a little transfer mechanism they use to switch between the 2 pointers on the dial. So it's in, off. If I put to FM, it should go over somewhere. There you go. And when we tune, there we go. And if we go to medium wave, it should, well, it should go off. No, okay. Oh, there it is there. Yes, that's just needs lubricating, I'd say. Just looking along here, there's not a lot that's any issue. We haven't got any wax caps in this one. It's got fairly modern caps in most of it. Might be some wax ones up the end there. You can see a few. Looks okay. What's happened there? Oh, that's the Magic Eye. Oh look, it's missing its bottom clip. So someone's come in and left that off for whatever reason. Does that mean it's got a new Magic Eye? I'm going to spend an hour or so just going over this and make sure everything's in the right place, and there's nothing that I can see that's going to cause any grief. One of the things I need to fix is this here, so reattach that. That time that's shorting to the chassis. I can also see this capacitor here. I've got an idea they're not all that reliable, so I'll check that or probably take it out actually. This capacitor here was flopping around before. I've repaired it and managed to get it back onto the chassis again, mounted properly. This is a replacement capacitor, it's not the original. It's got different specifications to the original. On the back here, This capacitor's got bigger spacing, so they've just stuffed it into the hole that was there and hoped that it wouldn't contact. They've put little insulators there, but I'm going to take the capacitor off and open that hole up so it can sit properly. This is a 2-in-1 capacitor. It should be 100 and a 50 microfarad. Coming straight out of the rectifier, they've got it connected to the 64 instead of the 120 microfarad. So I'm going to make sure I'm doing that right, and I'm going to take this out, open the hole out, and wire it up correctly. This is the Selenium Rectifier. This has to go. It needs to be replaced with a modern bridge rectifier. I can't get out because of the virus at the moment to get another one. So I'm going to keep using this till I get the radio going, and when I can get out to get a new rectifier, I'll just replace this. Originally I was going to just try this out in the radio, so that's why I was going to drill the hole out and make it work. I thought perhaps I'll check it with my capacitor tester and see what we get. I'm putting it on the red lead here, and that should be 64 microfarad, and it's coming up at 92. And the yellow should be 120, and it's 40 over. Just looking at those readings, I don't think this capacitor is any good. So I'm going to remount it and find somewhere to put some replacement capacitors under the chassis there. I've got to get 3 capacitors in here to replace where that one goes. And there's not a lot of room in there. If I put 3 in there, it's going to get too crowded. I won't be able to move in there. These are the capacitors that have got to go in there. There's another one to go on top. And that's measuring up at 32 millimeters. And the case is 35, so I've got 2 millimeters to spare. I don't think the case here is going to be 2 mil thick, the two sides, so I think they'll just fit in there. I'll clean out the insides of this can and see if these will fit. If it doesn't work, it doesn't really matter. I've just got an empty can sitting there. Now I've been told that the electrolyte in these may be carcinogenic, so I'm going to wear protective gear and clean up all the mess I make. I've cleaned out the capacitor. Didn't quite come out on the lathe as I'd hoped, but I got there eventually. I've made a little capacitor pack up. There's 2 47s in parallel and another 47 on the bottom there, and they do fit in there. I've kept the wiring colours the same as what they are on the outside of the can, so in future anyone should be able to work it out. I've wired in the capacitor. I mounted a solder tab along here with 3 tabs on it. Insulating plate on the bottom there in case the capacitor decided to slide down. I sweat soldered the tab strip onto the chassis so it won't move anywhere. I'm going to give it a run. Here's the full wave rectifier sitting out by itself here. I've got to mount that yet. I've just put some tape around to try and protect myself. I've put the knobs on so I don't have to grab the shaft. I changed 2 capacitors that looked a bit dodgy. So we'll see how they go. I've also tested the transformer, and that doesn't have any shorts in it, and it seems to be working. I think we'll put some power on and see what happens. Now I've got a DC voltmeter on the plate of the output valve, so I can just make sure we do have plate voltage. So I think I'll give it a go. I'm on dim bulb as usual. See if that does anything. So that seems to be working alright. I've selected it to medium wave here. Volume. Now I've connected the shop speaker up. I didn't have a speaker, of course. Nothing. Medium. That's on FM. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. 14 watts. Okay, well we haven't got a lot of power on there. Go to full power. We've got 300 volts on the plate. Volume's on, flat out. That's phono. There is nothing. Ah, wait on, I've got to put it on phono. Okay. Ah. Oh, there's a bit there. So the amplifier is working. Well, actually that should be much louder than that. That's very soft. I'll check some voltages, I think. I'm not sure what's going on here. Hang on. I swapped over to the digital meter. According to the schematic, we should have 245. Something's not working here because it's not pulling enough power, and this plate's too high. So that's 300 on there. So the screen, let's check the screen on this. The schematic says number 9, which is that one. What have we got there? Nothing. There's no screen voltage. Is that right? Grounded. Plate voltage. There's no screen. Power off. Says the output valve. There's plate voltage, number 7. We've got too much there. It says 245. We've got 300. There's the screen there, number 9. That's what I looked at. It's got nothing. So it's getting its power. Where's it getting its power? So that's the only entry into the radio, so it's going up there through this transformer, which could be failed, through a resistor and onto that screen. So that resistor, I'll just have a look and see what's going on. So power supplied up here from the rectifier through the transformer, through the resistor to 9, which is the screen. It then goes down, and that's the other capacitor I put in. So there's the 2 capacitors I put in. Now I check that resistor and it's okay, and then I look for that wire there and it's not in. So here's the resistor here. It's checked out okay. It comes along here to this 50 microfarad capacitor that's in there, but it doesn't go anywhere else. It should be a wire to here. That's missing. There's no wire, and looking at that, I can't see where it's even had a wire. But that's the screen. I don't think it can come up the other. It doesn't come up the other way. It goes straight in there. So for some reason there's a wire missing there. So I'll just try it. So if I go from here and try and clip that onto number 9 without shorting everything out, like that. So I'll just go to dim bulb again, make sure everything looks good, and the globe's behaving. It's got 14 watts. Alright, I'll go to full. $22. It hasn't come up much if it has. That's better. I'll just see what voltage we've got on the screen now. That looks better. 230, 231. And you can't see it, but the voltage on the plate has dropped to about 225. It's almost exactly correct. I think it's 224, isn't it? Alright, let's see if it works. So it's on phono. That worked. Oh, Jimbos. A lot of noise in it.
Now they all failed today after charged. They're accused of failing to ensure that Link Energy complied with the Environmental Protection Act. This is all to do.
Let's try FM. See if we've got a. Oh, there you go. It sounds a bit distorted there, so it needs a bit more work, I'd say.
It said that this was the most complex prosecution ever.
Okay, it's working. So we're back to normal voltages. The magic eye is not doing anything. It's disappointing. I've installed a wire into that screen, so that's all working properly. The unit's now pulling 40 watts, which is what it's supposed to be. So everything is going all right. The Just want to check the grid bias. Now this one's got cathode biasing, so this should be, I think the schematic says about 5 point, what have we got there, 5.8. It's working, but it's not working very well. I'm going to get rid of all these wax capacitors. Some of the electrolytics, I might look at those. There's a couple of extra electrolytics here. I can maybe check those and see if they're okay still. I need to mount this rectifier. Right, I'm just going to work through this a bit more and we'll get back. I was just changing all the wax capacitors. I came across this one here. It's a 0.01. It's got the normal in and out on the capacitor, and it's also got a shielded wire, or a shield wire. And if I peel back the paper, you can see the shield in there, and that's what that wire is connected to. Now the idea is to pick up any stray RF and drain it off to the chassis. Here's the replacement capacitor, and it just size-wise, it's not going to pick up RF, anything like these old ones would, if they were to do it anyway. So what I thought is I'll make my own. So I've wrapped some wire around a 0.01 capacitor, and I've used super glue to hold it there. And I've got some heat shrink I'm going to put over there. I've put a little hole in the heat shrink to let the side earth one get out. Well, here's the original and here's mine, and you can't tell them apart really. Now I think I'm wasting my time. I don't think there'll be any issues with it, but I'll do it anyway, and hopefully it doesn't cause more problems than it solves. I've changed all the capacitors that needed changing. The others that I didn't change I've checked, and they're pretty good. There was nothing wrong with those. There was an electrolytic in there. I've left that one. It was fine. There's one there. I changed that. That was out of spec. And there's a couple of other waxies down the bottom there. I got rid of those as well. I've had the radio running and it sounds much better. The FM's still poor, but the AM's not so bad. I think I need to do an alignment to clear up the AM and get the FM working properly. But I need the dial glass in, so I've got to repaint the backing here. It's just flaking off and the paint's coming off. So I'm going to repaint that, and then I can put the dial glass on, and I'll do an alignment. Now the AM alignment's no problem. I haven't done FM before, so it's going to be a learning curve for me. And I haven't really got the equipment, so it's going to be fun. I removed the two indicators here for the bass and the tone. I need to get these cables out of the way, the strings, and the indicators. So I think what I can do is pull that one up and put him behind there, perhaps flip him over, and I can get that and get it out of the way like that. And at the other end I'll just tuck it behind. I think with this one I'll undo the string here at the spring, then I can just tape these onto the side of the chassis here. I'll just tape that temporarily there, and at the other end. Now this is only temporary until I can put them in the right place. So I'll just go and get the spring off here. Now I've taken the string back on both sides now, so it's quite secure. I'm going to sand this off now and clean it up, put some white paint on and let it dry. I sanded that back to metal. There's no way I could leave the paint on there. It wouldn't stay there in the first place, so it's not going to stay there if I paint over it. I'm going to paint it an ivory colour, which is, I think white's just going to be too stark. Okay, I'll let that dry and we'll see how it looks when it dries off. I've given that another coat. It's got two coats on there now, so that looks pretty good. I'll take the paper off. The new paint is a pretty close match to the old paint. That's all back together now, and I've got the string back on without any trouble. So that's going to look much better behind the glass. Now while I'm out here, I'm going to try and just clean the chassis up a bit. I'm not too worried about it, but just see if I can get some of the dust off it, I guess. I started cleaning the chassis up, and it's coming off pretty good, so I'm going to keep going. I wasn't going to worry too much, but it's coming up all right. So I was using a pre-mixed paste type cleaner, so it's an abrasive type cleaner. But it works very well. It's coming up okay. It's nothing flash, but yeah, it's just making it look a bit better. So I've got nothing to do this morning, so I'll just keep polishing it up and make it look a little bit more presentable. Now while I've got the radio out in the workshop, I'll make another half saddle to finish this Magic Eye holder. That was missing when I got the radio. The Magic Eye was just sitting in there and it was held in with a rubber band which had perished off years ago. So I just need to make a saddle half to go on there. Alright, well I've made a little saddle. It's just made out of a bit of aluminium, so that should fit in there. Yeah. So that'll hold that securely. I have a new Magic Eye on the way, so we'll be able to fit that one hopefully, and hopefully that one will work. Now I'm going to have a go at changing this EM34. I can't get an EM34, they're too expensive and too hard to get. So what I did manage to get was a Russian equivalent, and it's a 6E5C, very similar characteristics, but I do have to rewire the plug a little bit. The Russian valve's only got one trio, the EM34 had two, so just got to get rid of one of those and move a couple of pins around and maybe it'll work. Now the other thing I noticed was the Russian 6E5C is bigger than the EM34, bigger diameter. It's about 3mm bigger, which means the little bracket I made is too small. So now I'll have to go and make another bracket, or I can just put longer screws and not do it up. I don't know, I'll have to think about that. Anyway, we're going to rewire it first. We'll see what happens. I downloaded the data sheet for both valves and then worked out where I had to wire it, and then did a rough working out there. Then I found on Radio Museum a gentleman named Jacob Roshi had already done it up for me, and I made this little table up. So that's all I need to do really. The only two changes are those grid and the target need to change a pin. So because it's only got one plate, we delete one plate and one resistor. He said to keep the resistor in there and just send that off to the new plate. This is the way it's wired now. That's pin number 1, that's not connected. Pin 2's the filament. Pin 3's the plate, and that's going to stay there. Pin 4 on this is the grid. We're going to take that off and put it on 5. There's nothing on pin 4 in our new valve. So the grid's going to go there. This one is the target. So we're going to run this blue wire, which is carrying our 250 volts odd, onto there, and the rest stays the same. So pretty simple mod. Just move that from there to there, that from there to there, get rid of that resistor, and connect this resistor across to there somehow. Okay, I've rewired that. Pin 1 is not connected. Pin 2 is still the filament. Pin 3 is the plate, so it's got a little power supply through the resistor. Pin 4 is not connected. Pin 5 is now the grid, the white one. Pin 6 is the power supply, and that's supplying power to the plate across this resistor. And 7 and 8 are grounded. So that's the filament and the cathode both going to ground. So I'll plug the valve in and fingers crossed it'll work. Alright, I'll turn it on and see what happens. It's going green, I think. Well, I can just see it. Okay, I'll turn some lights off, hang on. Well, there it is. It's working, but it's very dull. I'll have to see what it looks like when it's mounted in the hole. Maybe it looks alright. I'll check some voltages on it too and see what we should have and what we've got. Well, I've got a lot to do still on the chassis before I finish, so I think I might break the video into 2 and probably 3 because I still have to do the case. Otherwise it's going to go far too long. The concepts and way this is done is so much different to what I'm used to doing, so I'm having a lot of fun doing this because I'm learning so much. I hope you can join me next time for part 2 of my NordMende Elektra 58 radio adventure.